I may be light on my feet, but this video is heavy on content. It's for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the show. My name is Gavin. This is my channel. Feels like my seat is a little low there tonight. Hey, and don't let baby Gavin fool you. He is light on his feet. That kid can dance. Hey, have I already said welcome? I feel like I'm out of practice, but it's good to be here. Glad you're here. Today we are taking a fresh look at the case of missing children, Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Missing since May 2nd. Oh, that's just heartbreaking. We're 6 weeks out. Missing since May 2nd. Lilly, age 6. Jack, age 4. The story that the parents told was that they could hear them out in the living room of the trailer home that they lived in. This is their home right here. They weren't supposed to go outside. Then they stopped hearing them play, and they went out and they were gone. Went searching for them. Parents are Daniel, and I think it's Malia. It might be Malaya. I can't remember. I hate mispronouncing people's names, but I think it's Malaya, something like that. So Daniel Martell, Malaya Brooks Murray. They are now estranged from one another, from what I understand. And you guys know that I was gone for a little over a week, and so I want to catch up on this case. This is one of the cases that is extremely important to me. I know it is to you as well. These are kiddos that we want found, but 6 weeks has passed. 6 weeks, and I started a little poll. I'll go ahead and end it now, but I asked you guys, what do you think happened to Lilly and Jack? 2% of you say they wandered off and got lost. 8% say they were abducted. And my idea there was that maybe they got out of the house, they went out the street, were taken. 90% of you say something worse, and I think I'm with you on that. I'm on the something worse team now. And I think that the Mounties are too. So the Royal Canadian Mounted Police are famously tight-lipped about their active investigations, but over the last week, again, we're running about a week behind because I was gone. There have been a couple things that have come out that I wanted to talk with you guys about. Hey, if you have any ideas, any tips that you can give to the RCMP, you can do it anonymously through Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. That's 1-800-222-TIPS. Okay? And there are a couple other numbers as well, which we're going to get into. This is from the 11th of June, 6 days ago, so last Wednesday. And this is a media release that they put out there. I've actually got this and a few other things to read. Because yesterday we were talking about polygraphs a little bit as we were talking about Stephen Stearns. A video got demonetized, by the way. That bums me out. Doesn't matter. Gavin, what are you crying to the folks for? It doesn't matter. We were talking about polygraphs. And so we're going to, this case, one of the questions from yesterday is, if they don't have to do polygraphs, then why do they do them? And this case is one of those where I think polygraphs are coming in handy. But anyway, let's read what the RCMP had to say last Wednesday. It says, the Nova Scotia RCMP's intensive approach to the missing persons investigation into the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan continues. More than 11 Nova Scotia RCMP units are working on the missing persons investigation, some of which include the Northeast Nova RCMP Major Crime Unit, Pictou County District RCMP, Digital Forensic Services, digital forensic services. Truth verification section. They've got a, that sounds very British. Yes, I work in the truth verification section. Well, that's kind of what it felt like there, but it doesn't matter. Okay. They are a Commonwealth country. Gavin, don't get sidelined here. Legal application support team, police dog services, underwater recovery team, behavioral sciences group, and the criminal analysis service. They are joined in their investigational efforts by the National Center of Missing Persons, Canadian Center for Child Protection, and provincial and municipal police agencies from Nova Scotia and other parts of Canada. Quote, the investigation is being led by a tenacious, committed group of investigators who are gathering and assessing information daily to learn more about the circumstances of Lilly and Jack's disappearance so we can find them. And I think that truth verification team, as much as I was kind of joking about it, I think they're probably busy on this, right? Says Staff Sergeant, I don't know, Rob McCammon, officer in charge, acting, major crime and behavioral sciences. Continuing the quote, all scenarios are being considered and we've engaged every tool and resource at our disposal. End of quote. The Nova Scotia RCMP would like to thank the public for all of the tips, information, and video footage. Again, tips, you can remain anonymous. There's a number here at the end that I'll give you as well. You can remain anonymous through Crime Stoppers, 1-800-222-8477. Okay, so we'd like to thank the public for all the tips, information, and video footage that has been provided since Lilly and Jack went missing. With this support, investigators have collected hundreds of hours of video from the areas surrounding Lansdowne Station, including footage taken from along Gaelic Road between 12 p.m. on April 28th and 12 p.m. on May 2nd, which was the subject of a public appeal from the investigative team on May 28th. Formally interviewed 54 people, which has included the administration of Polygraph to some of the individuals interviewed. Received 488 tips, many of which have been assessed and followed up on. Extensively searched the property from which the children went missing, including every aspect of the home, grounds, outbuildings, and nearby septic systems, wells, mine shafts, and culverts. Man, what a job to do. Right? Have been granted numerous judicial authorizations to seize and examine materials and devices that may provide information useful to the investigation. Quote, we're assessing, evaluating, and analyzing a significant volume of information from a variety of sources. We have a very coordinated and deliberate approach to make certain all information is meticulously scrutinized, prioritized, and actioned to ensure nothing is missing, says Corporal Sandy Matharu, Investigative Lead, Northeast Nova, RCMP Major Crime Unit. I feel like Corporal Sandy Matharu probably had that written by somebody else, but okay. We're committed to doing what is necessary to locate Lilly and Jack and advance the investigation, which may take longer than we all hoped. Yeah, most of us hoped that in the first 24, 48 hours it would have come to a conclusion. The information gathered thus far through the investigation, including the ground search and rescue efforts, has not identified new search areas. Anyone with information on the whereabouts of Lilly and Jack is asked to call the Northeast Nova RCMP Major Crime Unit at 902-896-5060 to remain anonymous. Contact Nova Scotia Crime Stoppers, 800-222-TIPS. Submit a secure web tip at crimestoppers.ns.ca or use the P3 Tips app. So that is what they said back on the 11th. This does appear to confirm what Mr. Martel has said about a polygraph, and we're going to get into that a little bit more, okay? Same day, this is an article from National Post. All scenarios are being considered, RCMP say, as search continues for missing NS siblings. And The reason I'm including this is it appears that they followed up and talked to RCMP after they got that press release, so there's a little bit more here. Mounties searching for 2 young Nova Scotia siblings who went missing more than a month ago say they've administered lie detector tests, collected hundreds of hours of surveillance video from the area around the children's home, fielded 488 tips, and formally interviewed 54 people, but they still haven't found Lilly and Jack Sullivan. This investigation is being led by seasoned investigators committed to gathering information about the disappearance of Lilly and Jack, said RCMP Corporal Guillaume Tremblay. I'm very sorry about that. Guillaume, I think is how we say that, Tremblay. All scenarios are being considered and every resource and tools are at their disposal. Mounties have previously said there's no evidence the children were abducted. Tremblay would not say Wednesday if investigators still believe that to be the case, and he would not get into whether police believe the children are still alive. We're leaving no stones unturned in the case, Tremblay said. He wouldn't say how many people have been subjected to lie detector tests during the hunt for the missing children. Experts are examining every question and answer that those individuals are providing. Again, the Truth Verification Service, right? And I made fun of that a little bit, but when a reporter or a producer is working on, say, some sort of long-form product, right? Whether that's a documentary or a long-form written piece, there typically is a fact verification team that goes through that. So you have to take seriously everything that people tell you. I'm speaking as a reporter. I imagine police do something very similar. You have to take seriously everything that they tell you, but you cannot believe all of it. You have to be suspicious of it all until it is verified. And I think that's probably what they're doing here. Let's see. Experts are examining every question and answer that those individuals are providing, Tremblay said, and it could guide the investigations. Mounties won't say if they have any suspects in the case. I can't speak to persons of interest at this time, Tremblay said. It would compromise the investigation that's ongoing. And then it goes into just kind of a summary of what happened. I think let's see. Let me start back up here, okay? Mounties have also obtained search warrants to seize and examine materials and devices that may provide information useful to the investigation, it said. Oh, this is what we just read. Okay. Daniel Robert Martel, who identifies as the children's stepfather, told the Chronicle Herald earlier this month that he and the children's mother, Malia Brooks Murray, last heard Jack and Lily on the morning of May 2nd as they lay in bed with their baby. Yeah, and we have known all of that. Okay, so that's what we got off of this one. Now this one is a little bit more. Okay, stepfather of missing Nova Scotia children shares details of the polygraph test that he took. Actually, before we get into that, let's just catch up on what you guys are saying over there. So let me bring up the where we go. There we go. That's a nope with a super chat. Thank you very much. First, want to say thank you for keeping these children in your coverage. So important. Second, love Baby Gavin. Who wouldn't? Yeah, Baby Gavin's rad. He's a dancer. But I'm happy to continue to cover this. This is an important case to a lot of us. I'm just going to scroll up to the top here real quick. Judith, welcome. Let me bring up these kiddos here real quick. Welcome. Sherry, welcome from Nova Scotia. Glad you are here. Hope you and yours are happy and safe, though I know that this case weighs heavy on us all. Let's see. Jennifer says, I was determined to be here on time. The case weighs heavy on my heart and mind. Kids of their ages don't just vanish. Indeed. I agree. Tony says hello. Hi, Tony. Mooney loves the poll. Yeah, I'm like, I should have somebody flipping toggles and pushing buttons and stuff for me, but I'm kind of a one-man show, so I completely forgot. I mean, I've never used that pull feature. I don't think I have anyway. Let me just keep going, see if there's anything else in here that... Yeah. Does YouTube have money problems? So much demonetization. Some demonization as well. I felt demonized a little bit by Mrs. Stearns last night. Autumn Doyle. Look at you go. 14 months as a member. So grateful for Autumn leading our intrepid group of moderators. Make Messing 714 says, Gavin, I haven't heard it. The family homes have been searched or questioning of DM's mother and brother. Daniel Martell's mother and brother. I haven't heard if other homes have been searched, like the family members' homes or something like that. I have not heard that either. I do not know. Good comment. Okay. T-Boz says, I think the children were given to someone close to Malia and that person facilitated something nefarious. Man, I hope not. But it's 6 weeks. We've got to be real here, right? We've got to be real. It's sad. Deanna, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Oh my goodness. Susan gifted some memberships. Thank you very much, Susan. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. Okay, so that's where we are. Now let's head on back over. I'm going to hide this. We're going to bring this back up. Oh, just so you guys know, if you use GF in your comment, it will highlight it on my end, so I'll be able to see it. I know that most of you are around here a lot, but for those of you who are new, that's the thing around here. Just put GF, and then, that will help me see your thing. Okay, let's get this back up. All right, coming back over to Acrobat. All right, stepfather of missing Nova Scotia children shares details of polygraph test. The stepfather of 2 missing children in Nova Scotia's Pictou County says he took a polygraph test to help the police investigation. This was back on the 12th that this was reported. It is believed 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan were last seen the morning of May 2nd at their home on Garlick Road in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia. Since then, investigators say they have chased down every lead. They said they chased down many of them. They didn't say every lead, but okay. The RCMP says the investigation is still active and confirms officers have interviewed 54 people, conducted polygraph tests, and received close to 500 tips, but there's still no sign of the missing siblings. The children's stepfather, Daniel Martell, says he was the first to volunteer for a polygraph. Quote, I know it would be a big help in the case and kind of narrow down maybe some of the speculations and just provide more evidence, said Martell. RCMP Corporal Guillaume Tremblay confirmed to reporters Wednesday afternoon that some of the 54 people interviewed in the case had taken polygraph tests. Quote, there's multiple facets to those investigations, and those experts are examining every question and answer that those individuals are providing, and it could guide the investigation, said Tremblay. Police have not said how many tests were administered, who took the tests, or what the results were. During his polygraph test, Martell says he was asked whether or not he was involved in the disappearance of the children. He adds his cell phone was confiscated and searched by investigators along with the cell phone of his estranged wife. Chris Lewis, CTV's policing expert and a former polygraph examiner for the Ontario Provincial Police, says it's significant the RCMP has administered polygraph tests. Okay. You don't do polygraph tests and waste that resource on people that maybe just saw something or heard something or is a real remote suspect. That's not the way it works, Lewis told CTV News Wednesday. If they're doing polygraph tests and examinations on people, those are people they suspect might be involved in some way or for whatever reason aren't being honest. This reminds me, This is tangential. I remember watching the Chris Watts interrogation video. That's years old now, but he took the polygraph test, and then after the polygraph test, the investigator came in and said, "Okay, Chris, I think you already know this. You failed." I mean, didn't provide anything other than you failed, and that basically is what broke him. You didn't do well. It would be so much better on your conscience if you just let it out. It's kind of how that went, and it totally worked. But anyway, getting back to this. They're saying if they're doing polygraph tests, they're doing them on suspects or on people who they think aren't being honest. At this point, there's been no major break in the case. Martel says the silence inside his once busy home is deafening. Going from a family of 7 to just me, I have nothing but time to just think, he said. I wonder why. I mean, his other 2 children... Does anybody know what happened to his other 2 children? Are they at his ex-spouses or ex-partners? Something like that? Why is he gone just down to him? I know that Malia left with the baby. The 2, obviously, Lilly and Jack are missing, and then their other 2. I wonder what happened there. The emotional toll has left its mark on Martel, who has lost custody of his daughter, Meadow. I haven't even got to see my own kids, not even Meadow yet, but I'm still hopeful. I have supervised visits coming up with CPS. Interesting. For those of you who are in Canada, please enlighten me here, because I think that while our societies are similar, there are some pretty radical differences between us, right? I mean, that's on full display in all the Commonwealth countries. Could you give me some guidance on why a person... I mean, is it easier in Canada for a person to lose custody of their children than in the United States? And the reason I say that is, in the United States, we value liberty almost over anything. That's enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, everything that our founding fathers did valued liberty over all else, and we have mostly continued that tradition. And I know that in other Western countries, including the Commonwealth countries, you don't share that as deeply with us. So I'm wondering, what evidence would CPS have to have in order to take his children? He doesn't have custody of Meadow. He can't see his own kids. There would have to be... and here in the States, at least I feel that Child Protective Services, Children and Youth Services, Family Services, whatever your state calls them, already has too much power to do that. But I feel like in Canada, they probably have more. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I don't know this. I just suspect it. Okay. The children's stepfather says he's grateful for the investigators and the people who continue to share tips. He adds the family remains hopeful the children will return home safe. Quote, it's kind of mind-boggling that there's not been any evidence at all, he said. I appreciate every tip, but it kind of leaves a lot of room to the imagination of what really went on. I just want everybody to focus outward, focus on the kids. The kids are the main priority, and that'll never change. Okay, police say more than 11 Nova Scotia RCMP units are working on the case, which we learned already, along with the National Centre of Missing Persons, Canadian Centre for Child Protection, and provincial and municipal police agencies across Nova Scotia and Canada. Police say the information gathered during the investigation, including all ground search and rescue efforts, has not identified any new search areas at this time. And then, all that. Anyone with information, let's say that again, call the Major Crime Unit 902-896-5060 or Nova Scotia Crime Stoppers, 800-222-TIPS, 800-222-8477. Hoping you guys are enlightening me on Canada a little bit. Okay, the last one that I want to read with you guys is this one from the 13th, okay? Nova Scotia missing kids. Why policing expert believes case is now a criminal investigation. I think for a lot of us, yeah, it's obviously a criminal investigation. It's 6 weeks out. But let's read this. Okay. A former Nova Scotia police detective says he believes the search for 2 missing children in Pictou County that has lasted more than a month is now a criminal investigation. Siblings Lilly and Jack, 6 and 4, were reported missing on May 2nd from their home on Gaelic Road. Okay. Jim Hoskins, a retired Halifax regional police officer and former major crime staff sergeant who is not working on the case, says the actions from police and the agencies involved have led him to this conclusion. Quote, they're looking at this with some criminal aspects as well. They just haven't said so, he said. In my personal experience, if this is not a criminal investigation now, I'd be totally surprised. In an update, Wednesday. Yeah, we got a lot of that we've already read. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, if they're giving polygraphs, then they want to see if people's statements are truthful as far as they can interpret it from a polygraph. But to me, it's a criminal investigation, and that's how I interpret this right now, Hoskins said. All right, how do polygraph tests work? Tom Muriello, a forensic consultant and lecturer at the University of Maryland's criminology department, says it's important to understand how a polygraph test works and why it might be used. Getting back to what I said when we first started this. You need to understand that a polygraph is not a lie detector. It doesn't detect lies, he said. It simply detects when a person responds with their sympathetic nervous system to relevant questions. He points out, real quick, I've mentioned this before. I know I mentioned this last night, but my dad's oldest brother was an FBI special agent. And I always thought that was the coolest thing ever, that my uncle was a special agent. In fact, my dad worked in aerospace. He had the coolest job ever. Looking back on it, my dad had the coolest job ever. Plus, he was like the smart guy that came to school to teach us about rocketry and stuff like that. It was the best, but not as cool as my Uncle Leon, who he was an FBI special agent, and so he worked in the field for most of his career. And as he got up there in age, he became a specialist at administering and interpreting polygraphs. And so he did that for, I don't know how many years at the end of his career. But then after his retirement, because in the FBI, there's a certain age limit that they have, and then you have to retire. So he hit that, and then he continued to consult with the FBI as a polygraph administrator. Anyway, I think it's so cool. I would testify that my Uncle Leon might be one of the smartest people I ever knew. I think that it takes a very smart and dedicated investigator to do that kind of work. And I don't know, this is just very, very interesting to me. So it simply detects when a person responds with their sympathetic nervous system to relevant questions, which begs the question, what is the sympathetic nervous system? You guys see that I'm looking down at my fingers. The sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is a crucial part of the autonomic nervous system responsible for the body's fight or flight response to stress or perceived danger. It prepares the body for action by increasing heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing rate, while also slowing down digestion and other non-essential functions. Essentially, it's the body's alarm system, rapidly mobilizing resources to deal with immediate threats, according to the Cleveland Clinic. All right, that is cool to know. So, getting back over here, he's like, It simply detects when a person responds with their sympathetic nervous system to relevant questions. It's fight or flight. Did you murder, Professor Plum in the dining room with the lead pipe? Oh, heart, I must run. That's what's happening. Okay. He points out that police departments will use polygraph tests as an investigative tool, but it isn't a foolproof way to find who is guilty. Not passing the test doesn't mean you're guilty or you're involved. It simply means that there's some issue there, maybe some knowledge, guilty knowledge, etc., he explained. He adds that if police have a suspect, they may also use the polygraph test as a psychological tool to draw out a confession, which is exactly what happened in the Chris Watts case. Chris, you didn't pass. Like, no evidence or anything. Just, hey, buddy, you didn't pass. Just get it off your chest, man. And he totally did. So they use it as a psychological tool to pull out a confession. He continues, I've done about 1,200 polygraph tests when I was an examiner for the federal government back here in the United States, and there were times when, before I even put the attachments on the person admitted things he said. So you create this psychological environment for them to be truthful and honest, and sometimes it works. Wow, what a great insight. That is a terrific insight. I wish my Uncle Leon were still around to interview. Sadly, he passed away several years back, but oh my goodness, that is so funny. You create this psychological environment for people to be truthful and honest. Sometimes it works. That's funny. Okay, nefarious take. As a police officer who's taken part in similar investigations in the past, including searches for children, Hoskins says he knows there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work going on in this case. They're not sitting around in a nice, cool, air-conditioned boardroom all day talking about this and strategizing, he said. They're out there. And the only way they're going to see or get results in this is to be out there talking to people, looking at videos, looking at topography. They're not in offices doing this by a laptop, let's put it that way. RCMP have said searches of the property where the children went missing have included every aspect of the home, grounds, outbuildings, septic systems, wells, mine shafts, and culverts. Hoskins says investigators will be going on the balance of probabilities and consider the fact that multiple searches of the heavily wooded area around the home have not turned up any evidence. If you can't find them, somebody has to say, Hoskins says, enough is enough right now for searching those areas. So now we move to where? There's only one other option, a nefarious take to this. In other words, a criminal type thing. That's only my personal opinion, he said. I think that's the end. I think it's a blank page at the end. So interesting. The polygraph thing is so interesting. Okay, let's get over to your comments here. I really would like to, hopefully some of you have some insight as to the Child Protective Services part of things. So let me just scroll up here. Oh my goodness, so much. You guys are talking so much. It's amazing. Okay. Yep. Are children in Canada insured? I don't know. I mean, you mean like for death and dismemberment, stuff like that? I mean, it would be wise to do that for your children. Kent says, Gavin, extended family members interviews to be on CBC tomorrow night. Ooh, thank you for the heads up. Maybe we'll cover that. Tracy says, I think something happened to the kids Tuesday night, but was reported missing after because they were due to go back to school and would have been missed and checked on. Interesting. Tracy talks a lot. Watching from Alberta, Canada. Thank you for covering this case. After the first day of not finding the kids, it became very hard to believe they were anywhere safe. Yeah. Does it set off red lights in your head when these parents have little to no emotion when their children are missing? Yeah, it does. It does indeed. Just to quibble, because I am a professional quibbler, not out of disrespect or anything, just because it's fun to think about different angles. Mr. Martell did get choked up in one of the interviews that I saw. And it actually gave me a feeling of relief. Oh, okay, he cares. And then I started to second guess it. Well, does he care about himself or does he care about the kids? But to me, I think Mr. Martell, while probably still a person of interest and a suspect because he should be, I think he's the one that's been behaving correctly in all this. All right. Jamie, welcome. First time catching a live stream. Something does feel off. Hope they find them too. I do too. It's a long shot at this point, I think. Emily, 53. Daniel had drug issues, lost custody of his first kids is what you'd heard. Okay. Letha says, Gavin, what are Canadian laws around polygraphs? Do they stand up in court? I don't even know. Here, polygraphs are used as evidence, but it's more about the expert testimony of the person administering the polygraph. And then it's up to the jury to decide if they believe what that expert is saying. Typically, if there's a polygraph expert on one side, there will be a polygraph expert on the other side that says something else, right? It's very kind of hard. Gwen says, when Daniel said the first morning he drove around for 2 hours looking for them, I immediately thought that Stephen Stearns said that when Maddie was missing. I think that's a valid observation, a good observation. Let's see. Christine says, radical difference is correct. This, I think, is my question about CPS. It's about the same for losing custody. It's gotten a lot stricter the past years, so I'd have to say yes. Okay. Yeah, that is the question of the hour. Why can't he see his other kids? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm very curious. Pamela says, I don't see it as a Chris Watts situation. Yeah, the parallels are not, in the cases are not the same. I just remember the polygraph being used as the thing that got him to confess. I thought it was, investigatively, it was terrific how they did that. But you're right. I don't see it that way either. I really don't. I waffle. In addition to being a professional quibbler, I seem to be a professional waffler too. Tracy talks a lot, says Gavin. I think generally in Canada it's difficult to completely lose custody unless there are exigent circumstances, danger, or gross negligence, though Indigenous kids are unfairly represented in kids taken. Okay. Yeah, that's one of those things in the Child Protective Services realm. There has to be a good balance, right? I mean, obviously we need to protect children, but sometimes that can be taken too far, and striking that balance is really tough. I mean, this isn't a perfect example, but in my area, there is a case of parents who took their child to the hospital for an injury, and the doctors found like dozens of healed over injuries, and this was an infant. The doctor calls Child Protective Services. The child is taken. The parents are prosecuted. Charges were dropped on the dad, but the mom pleaded no contest and ended up doing prison time. And then afterwards, the child was diagnosed with a condition that completely explained away all of the issues. And they're not the only person. I've got a lot of people reaching out to me about that. I'm working on a long form piece on that in my day job. So we have to strike a balance, right? I just am always uneasy giving power away. Susan says, my great uncle was an FBI agent as well. I always thought he could tell when people were lying just by looking at them. My Uncle Leon, what I always thought was cool was like it wasn't like at every family reunion, but every once in a while I'd see him and he'd have a sport coat on and it would move and I could see that he had his service weapon in a shoulder holster. I thought that was so cool. Like you only saw that in the movies, but he had one on like that. I thought it was cool. Sheila says fight or flight. Yeah, you knew before I did. You're so smart. Let's see. Canadian here says Jacqueline Consett. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. I'm terrible at that. Plenty of people have their children taken for many reasons. It really depends on each specific family and their history. Yeah. Gavin, you should look into getting Runkle of the Bailey, Ian Runkle, Canadian attorney, on your show ASAP for this. He's incredibly knowledgeable and would offer a unique perspective on the case. Hey, any of my volunteers that are watching this, mods, other research volunteers, are any of you willing to reach out? I love guests on the show. I love guests on the show. It's just so hard for me to get the logistics done. It's hard for me to do it. Working the day job full-time, working this job full-time, it's tough. So if anybody would volunteer to reach out to Ian Runkle, I would love having a Canadian attorney on to talk about it. I would love that. Teresa says, do we know if the mother had been struggling with postpartum, as in postpartum depression, since giving birth to her youngest? I don't know that. I've not heard anybody say anything about that. I certainly would feel sympathetic to her if she did. Oh my goodness. Several women in my life experienced that, and it was deep and hard. Beelzebub, polygraphs cannot be used as evidence in Canada. All right. Can the polygraph examiner or administrator be used as an expert, I wonder? Lori Green, UK killer of kids. His name is Ian Huntley. Daniel acting the same, talking to reporters, keeping close to the police and searchers. Okay, so I take this comment. This is a great comment. I totally get what you're saying. Again, just to play devil's advocate here. The way Mr. Martell, where's Daniel? Here he is acting versus the way Chris Watts acted, or Peterson, what was his name? Different, not Drew. The other Peterson, Scott Peterson, who were doing that. It's very different. To me, it just feels different. So, and I am happy being wrong too. I mean, I don't do backflips over it, but I don't mind being wrong. So if I'm wrong on this, I'm wrong on this. Totally cool to be wrong. Just, it just doesn't, Daniel doesn't have the same, I guess, timbre as Scott Peterson or Chris Watts, for example. Criminal timbre. I don't even think that's a real word, but that's what came to me. Anyway, Indy Sham says in Texas they can't even be mentioned in court. Very interesting. Okay, a couple other things. Danny Man says supervised visit because CPS concerned of children's safety because of parent history. Okay. One man's trash, brittle bone disease. I can't remember specifically the one it was, but it was one of those anomalies. Yeah. Oh man, it just refreshed. Let me go back up. There we go. Mellow Yellow says, Gavin, Sadie N. of the Prime Minister of Behavior on YouTube did a reaction of the parents with Greg Hartley of the Behavior Panel. Very interesting. Very interesting show. Okay. I think I mentioned Greg Hartley once. Okay, I will check that out. Thanks, Mellow Yellow. And Prime Minister of Behavior lives in the Maritimes too. Okay, cool. Jackie says, UK here. Hi, Gavin. This is breaking my heart. Where are these two babies? Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. These two little kiddos. Couple more comments. We're getting to the end. Cassie says, Daniel reminds me of Summer Wells' mom, Candace. She's always emotional, but we all know she's holding back. That's a nope, says Gavin. Will you be doing a lot of coverage of the dad who killed his own girls at campground? Forget where it was. That one's not ringing a bell. I don't know if I will or not. Sassy, caught alive. Glad you did. Kent says they're both involved. One might have done the more serious actions, but the other one is covering it up for self-preservation of the remaining family. Okay, that is as valid of a theory as mine or anybody else's. Gavin, does anyone know anything about Daniel's brother who allegedly stays in the backyard camper? I don't. Man, you guys are so awesome. So up on this stuff. Just terrific. Let's bring this up one more time. If you have any tips, police as of last week said that they had received 488 tips. If you have any tips, if you're in the area, you know anything about this, call the RCMP or Crime Stoppers at 800-222-8477. Through Crime Stoppers, you can remain anonymous. This is one of those cases. I think that we are into a more nefarious area of this, but I'd like it solved either way. Couple more before we go. Lisa Ringer, thank you for the super chat. Hope you get Runkle on the show. He is fantastic. I will do my best. Hopefully one of my volunteers will volunteer for that task. By the way, if you would like to volunteer to help me, I basically with like case research and stuff like that, getting guests on the show, go to my website, gavinfish.com. There's always a link down below. Go to this little button right here, this little envelope. That will take you to a contact page. And I actually updated this form. So right at the top it says, I like to volunteer. You can just choose that. Give me your name, email address, or phone number. Give me a little information about you, and one of my team will reach out. Okay. While you're here, click on this little fishy. Right? That little fishy will take you to the fish tank where we hang out on Facebook. If you are on Facebook and that's your thing, you're invited. We're close to 4,700 members there. I think we're at like 4,680, something like that. So it's a growing little community. Like to have fun and are looking for more people that like that stuff. So come on in. Also, while you're on the website, if you click on Crime Cod, that will take you over to my full-blown true crime website. I am looking for, by the way, a newsletter sender outer, editor, writer, person. Again, if you're up for the volunteer task, looking for that, because I'd like to get Crime Cod out to the people who have subscribed, and I just haven't had the time to do that. So please check that out. Okay. With that, guys, man, that's enough for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. Not sure what we're doing tomorrow, but we will be doing it at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I kind of feel like maybe we'll dip our toe back into the Karen Reed thing. Maybe. Who knows? We'll try. But until then, have yourself a good night. I bid you adieu. We'll see you then. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.